Hi everyone, Geoff Hall here, back in Forge Village. As a matter of fact, back at the Abbot Mills. 3 years ago, in fact 4 years ago, did two segments on the Abbot Mills. One before the luxury apartments were completed and after. Well, at the time we didn't know there was going to be a phase two, but I'm standing in front of what has become phase two. That was labeled the Sphinx because it overlooked the first part of the project. These are going to be apartments as well as the building that was the old shipping room and also one of the warehouses. And what you will see as we go through this is really an amazing project, okay? So as we go through, Chris will explain to you what is being done in each and some of the challenges that he has met and is trying to overcome in trying to get this completed in time for a new group of people to move in within the next year. So let's start and see if we can meet up with Chris. Well, Chris, this is the old shipping room, okay? You mean to tell me, with all of this stuff in here and just looking and even smelling, that you're going to make apartments out of this?
Sure.
Similar to the ones we see over in the first phase.
Well, yes and no. Yes and no. This building is unusual in all of both phases because it has the most interesting wood structure of any building on the property.
Okay.
And if you look at this wood frame, it has a compound wood structure with the girts and the beams both. You don't see that anywhere else. And when the project is finished, there'll be all new windows. All of the cinder block will be sheetrocked on the inside.
Okay.
So when you come in, and the floor will be a little higher because of the garage, right? What you'll see is a spectacular ceiling everywhere, and it will just,
This will be as high as the ceiling goes?
Yep.
Well, let me ask you this, okay? How many, just looking at this direction, how many apartments will we see here in this section?
There's 4 on each side. You come in the front door, and there'll be a corridor that goes right down into Building 15, into the cafe, and it branches off across the bridge into Building 9, and all that ties together.
Chris, I know in the other building, in phase one, that there was an parking underneath. How about this phase?
It's similar but different in phase 2. We got a little smarter about it. In phase 1, we went down 2 levels underneath the building, which meant the entire structure had to be rebuilt. When I did it in phase 2, I wanted to have more underground parking but less construction, so we're only going down 1 level in 2 of the buildings, and we're going to work at grade in the 3rd building, which you'll see when we go into Building 15. So this floor will come out, we'll go down 6 feet, pour a new slab, then we'll come up 7 feet, build a new floor, and that will be the apartment floor, which will be right up about here.
So when this concrete comes up, underneath is going to be parking.
27 spaces, yes, in this
Very
building.
interesting.
You see these columns? These columns are 22 feet apart, which is 11 feet per parking space, which is a perfect parking grid, and it's 60 feet deep, which is exactly the right depth.
Terrific.
And there'll be a door down on that end for cars to drive in and out, and it's already at that depth right now, so we don't even have to dig to get there.
Interesting. Let's move on. Chris, this corridor is the one that leads in from the segment that we said was the shipping room into this area that was, I believe, if I'm correct, had sheet fed presses in it. What's going to happen to this corridor?
Just for a point of reference, that's Building 11, that's Building 9.
Okay.
Because it's hard to remember what it was back then when it starts, you'll see why in a minute. So this is the bridge that connects 11 and 9 on 2 levels.
Okay.
And the important thing about this bridge is that all these walls are coming out. So this will be wide open. And up there you can see the pump house, so that if you're at the pump house and you look this way, you'll be able to see all the way down to Building 15, which is right there. If you take a look, that's the sort of odd view, if you will, of what that whole courtyard is going to be, and that's the key to the whole commons area. You'll want to see that when we get down there.
That looks very challenging, Chris.
I call it Tuscany comes to Westford.
Wow.
I think it's terrific. I just love it in there. So the upper level will stay in place. We're just going to do a little disappearing structure to hold that up in the air, because the floor of the bridge will stay in place and the upper level of the bridge will stay in place. What's going to disappear is all the walls, so that it's all wide open.
Okay.
And that's the part that's a little tricky. And we'll put windows in upstairs, and if we get up there, you'll see why.
Okay, good. Okay, Chris, this corridor is going to become what?
This is going to be part of the public areas, the common areas. What's important about Phase 2 is the common area feeds all through every building and ties into the atrium and out to the front entrance. And this is the other side of the bridge between 11 and 9.
Okay.
And that's up by the pump house. So this is going to open up, and it's going to come all the way down right through into the atrium itself.
So if you say this is the common area, what will we see in the common area?
All this will be gone.
Oh, this is going to be gone.
Gone. And if you remember the terrace that's outside the pump station across the canal?
Yes.
That originally, back when Phase 1 started, had exactly this structure all the way around the edge of Building 9. If you
Okay.
remember, it was all closed in, right? We tore down the first 100 feet of it in Phase 1, and we're going to tear down the rest of it in Phase 2.
Interesting.
So this will be all apartments. This will be terrace, outdoor terrace, all right? And this terrace will continue all the way down to Building 12, and it'll connect in wide open, wide open
Okay.
to Building 11 and to 15.
Okay.
So if you don't want to wear a jacket, you go upstairs, because it's a 2-story bridge. If you're comfortable, you can just go outside.
Oh.
So it's both indoors and outdoors. It's hard to explain.
And it's hard to, it's really difficult to visualize that when you say it's all going to be gone. So it's going to be interesting seeing
And when you
this
come
a year
back,
from
it'll be
now.
obvious. You'll say, well,
Oh, yeah.
why didn't you say that?
Well, that's like looking at Phase 1, it was that way as well.
Right.
Okay, where do we go from here, Chris?
I think we should go down and see how the Commons goes into Building 15.
Okay. Okay, Chris, a year from now, if we come back, and we will come back a year from now, this section over here will be apartments, and along this corridor, these will be windows, correct?
Yes. This is the common area. The outdoor common area, as it transitions to the cafe, switches from outdoor to indoor right here. So this is a common corridor with the 3 apartments looking out on it.
Okay.
And you can start to see the works proceeding. This is the new spray foam ceiling insulation, that very high-tech ceiling that we're putting in, and we can show you that in Building 15.
You keep mentioning a cafe, okay? Explain what you mean by the cafe, and you say this is one segment of it?
The cafe is part of the commons that winds its way through, and as it works its way through, it changes. So it's different in one place than another. This part of it I call the cafe, because we're going to have a little kitchenette type area in the back, sort of like we have in Phase 1. And this will all be tables and chairs, and there'll be a low roof over it. When you get on the other side of the wall, it's 30 feet tall. It's a totally different place with all the mezzanines. But you got to have a word to refer to it, so I call it the cafe. Otherwise, I don't know what to call it. But these walls here will all be pushed out to the extent of the wing walls, and then cantilevered off that will be an outdoor deck. So it'll be really an outdoor-indoor space, and I'll show you that in a second.
Okay.
Does that help?
Good. Yeah, it's very helpful to me. Yeah, makes sense. Chris, you say this is your favorite place. And I remember the tour we did last fall down here, and you mentioning the same thing. Why?
Where else are you going to get something like this in Westford? You know, where you have this wonderful little canal that meanders its way underneath the building with this spectacular overview and all of this quiet vegetation. And normally it's just completely silent in here. Who would know that you're surrounded by all these buildings and all of this hubbub and chaos? You can come out here and read your book and it's absolutely as quiet as being in the woods.
And a resident of this will be able to come out here and do that.
Oh yeah. Well,
Okay.
that's the whole idea.
Where?
On the deck, first of all, and if we can, we'll do a walkway that connects the outdoor part of the public area with the deck.
Oh, okay.
So you'll be awash in choices of places to walk and how to move around within the facility.
Terrific. Chris, when I was in here last fall, this was packed with storage for courier at the time. There were shelves, it was just jam-packed. I said, well, I wonder, now I look at it opened up. What's going to happen in here?
This is a little tricky to explain, but it's basically pretty simple. The ground level is going to be mostly parking.
So where we're standing now is going to be parking.
Almost. You see the colored tape on the floor?
Yes.
That shows you the blue tape means partitions at ground level. The green tape means partitions at the upper level.
Okay.
And the yellow is transitions. So what'll happen is you see this blue tape coming, that's the front entrance.
Okay.
And there'll be a wall here that turns, so there'll be cars everywhere that way. And on this side of the line, basically from here over, this will all be part of that commons that we talked about in the cafe.
Oh, okay.
So there'll be a mezzanine that's about 8 feet up that's here, and the yellow tape shows the staircase that will take you up to the mezzanine. And the mezzanine will go all the way across over to there, so it's an overlook that goes all the way to the pump house. Then above that, there'll be a staircase that goes all the way up to the catwalk, which goes all the way down up. See the green tape? That's where the catwalk is, and there's windows above it, and that goes all the way down to the elevator, which is over to the right, which connects the 2 floors, and there's all sorts of ramps and staircases, and there's a lot of stuff in here. So that ties the 3 levels together, because there's underground parking in there and at-grade parking in here. And above this floor that we're going to build at about, say, 8 feet up is where all the apartments will be. And the center will come out, so this will be actually outdoors from here on down that goes all the way to Pine Street.
Oh, wow.
So this will be looking into the forest, which I think is important because this building actually is in the woods, not in the Courier property. And it's that vision that needs to be emphasized, because when you come back and all that's been removed, that's all you're going to see is the woods.
Oh, that's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay. Okay, this is building 9. What we see down here is the segment that is dug up. This is where the parking garage is going to go going. So when you explained in the other buildings, building 11, that same thing's going to happen over there. We're going to see that in a few months.
Right.
This here. Okay, explain what happens from here, Chris.
What people, I think, kind of refer to in their minds is they have a picture of this building with all of the printing presses in place. So the presses were literally standing right here at this level. So we took up all the flooring, which is what you saw in building 11. That flooring that's stacked in building 11 is the wood that we took out of here.
Oh, interesting.
And there was 1,300 tons of concrete hiding underneath all that wood.
Wow.
So that took us a month to get that out of here. Then we excavated down through the gravel, and now we've placed crushed stone on top of the flat gravel bottom, which is why you see these exposed column footings everywhere. And the parking will take place in between the column footings because they're 12 feet apart. And if you look at the pedestals, they're 2 feet, so you get a 10-foot parking space, and then we just have to trim the footings a little bit to make room for cars to park in between them, and there'll be 54 spaces in here. Then we'll build the ceiling of the parking garage, which will become the floor of the ground floor. Okay? So we basically took the ground floor out, dug down 6 feet, we'll come up 8 feet and build a new floor, which will be basically right at this height here, which is window sill elevation, which is basically a couple of feet above the concrete piers everywhere. It's 20,000 square feet. Everything below it is the garage with an outdoor exit at the new door there.
Okay.
Everything above that is going to be the ground floor apartments, which I think there's 18 altogether. And this has all been prepped and stripped. All the demo work is done.
Okay.
All the sandblasting has been done. It's basically, this is finished now. All we have to do is build that deck and we'll start building apartments, and it'll go very fast.
All of those windows, are they going to be the giant size?
Yeah, those are, those, if you remember, were cinder blocked in.
That's correct.
On the,
yep.
on the 2 levels. On the top floor, the old windows were still there. There's a mock-up window, the 3rd one from the end. If you go down there and look, that's a mock-up of what all these will look like.
Okay.
And they're basically a reproduction of the steel frame windows, which is different. In phase 1, they were mostly double hung.
Okay. Okay, Chris, we're on the 2nd floor. Explain to the people watching what's happening here and where we are.
All right, when we started out, we were on the ground floor of Building 11, and we talked about how the slab was going to come up and we were going to dig down and create the garage. So that's the ground floor of Building 11. This is the upstairs floor, which is very different, except it has the exact same mirror reflection of the girts and beams, which is so unusual in the mill. This is the only double frame building in the entire complex, which is why I like it so much. It also has tongue and groove flooring at the roof. I shouldn't call it flooring, but my understanding is this was all built out of secondhand materials that came out of one of the mills in Lowell.
Oh, okay.
And Courtyard built this themselves, which is why it's such an unusual building. And it has the low ceilings that I think makes it really special for an apartment. I like this. It's a sort of cave look. This, by the way, is the upper level of the bridge that we talked about downstairs. This will remain, and we'll cut in windows so that, a lot of visibility.
Yeah.
And this is the central corridor that connects the entrance, the upper level of the entrance, all the way down to the commons in Building 15, which is where all the ramps and the catwalks and stuff is.
And that's going to be a glass door over there, you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if we get to do the bridges, the bridges that connect the buildings together, that's still very iffy, but if I can pull that off, one of the bridges will go from there across above the driveway over to Building 10.
Oh, wow, okay.
And it'll tie in right at the gym.
Oh, wow, that'd be something. Will it be enclosed?
No.
Oh, okay, so
It'll
it'll
be
be an
wide
open
It'll
bridge.
be the steel span bridges
Yeah.
that I think we talked about at some point.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I'll be able to do that, but if we can, that's the whole idea. And there'll be another one that goes from the upper level of the atrium all the way across over Building 12 and ties in with the middle level of Building 9.
Yeah.
And the 3rd one will go from the end of Building 15 way out into the woods, and it'll just drop you off on the ground.
Okay, interesting.
That's just cross my fingers. I don't know if we'll be able to do that or not, but it's a hope for.
Where are we, Chris?
We're on the middle floor of Building 9. We just came across the bridge. This is where all the new windows are going to go. This corridor will come into the center, and there'll be a corridor that runs the length of the building. That'll be the entrance end, and this will be the elevator end, okay? And in between will be all apartments, so the windows that you see now will be invisible the next time we're standing right in this spot, because there'll be a wall here, and you'll be staring into somebody's bedroom otherwise.
When
So
you said
that's
building,
where all the partitions are.
When you said Building 9, just so people understand, Building 9 was the one with the floor torn up
Right.
and the parking garage going in, okay? So
Exactly.
this is the 2nd floor to that.
Yeah, this is the middle floor.
Middle floor,
which
okay.
in the building language is first floor. So it's
Okay.
ground, first, and second. Second is the top floor where the penthouses are.
Okay.
That's something you probably want to get a short picture of. But what we're doing in here is the floor in these buildings consists of 2 levels. You have a structural deck, which is pretty thick, maybe 3 inches. And then on top of that, they put what's called a wearing surface, which is a hard, thin layer of maple, which is what you see here. What we're doing is we're taking all the maple up and we're stripping all the nails and cleaning it all up. Then we'll come back and we'll install an acoustic system. It's called a package. It has 3 different levels of materials designed to absorb noise and impacts. Then we'll take the maple and we'll give it a slight treatment and put it all back down again. So when it's done, you won't even know that any of that's happened. And it'll look much like the atrium does in the other building, which is that rich, dark color. It's a long project tearing all this stuff up, but I think it'll give it an extra dimension that'll make it really special.
Okay, we're on the 3rd floor?
Physically, yes. We
But you
call it the second floor.
Okay.
Ground, first, and second. This is the top floor, but it also includes the penthouse, which is not technically a separate floor, but it sits on top.
Okay. Penthouse. Why the penthouse? Is that going to be a special apartment?
I think so,
Yep.
because if you look at them, you see it has windows on both ends. So there'll be a staircase that comes up kind of in the middle, and there'll be windows on both the kitchen end and the living room, bedroom end.
Okay.
So-
One apartment or several?
You see how the beams come across?
Yeah.
Each apartment will get 3 or maybe 4 of those beam segments.
Okay.
So you'll wind up with either about 1,000 or 1,300 square feet, whether it's a 1-bedroom or a 2-bedroom. And what we'll be doing is that structural flooring that you saw downstairs, we're going to install that above the beam so it'll match what's existing
Okay.
in that 5th column. See the flooring that's up there? That we're going to put in the missing parts of that. So basically there'll be a new floor all the way down through, and each apartment will have its own. There'll be no corridor up there at all. Each apartment will have its own staircase going up. And these apartments will be like the ones on the 1st floor because they will have mezzanines. So these will be 2-level apartments. We didn't talk about that downstairs, but so this will actually be 3 levels. Base level, mezzanines, and then the penthouses on top.
You mentioned a stairway. Would there be an elevator?
The elevator will come right to here, to your 3rd floor, and you come down the corridor, and each penthouse apartment will have its own private staircase going up.
Chris, those boards over there somehow look familiar to me. What are they?
When we were in Building 11, I think if you go back to the old photographs, you'll see there were 1,860 some odd storage drawers in there, which is where they kept the photographic negatives.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
we have some samples of those. So we had to dismantle all those storage drawers, and they used door blanks to form the bottoms of those drawers because they're flat and they're lightweight and they're stable. So when we took all that apart, we saved the bottoms of all of those drawers. So we have about, 3,000 of those door blanks, which we are going to reassemble and use for the ceilings in Building 15.
Oh, wow.
In the beginning, you asked what's going to be different.
Yeah.
Well, that's a real difference.
And so you recycle it rather than just dumping it someplace or burning it. It's going to be recycled. That is terrific.
Couldn't bear to throw it away. It's just
Oh, and they are solid, good pieces. Yeah.
yeah. And the flooring obviously is in the process of coming up, so you can see there's pretty big piles of it. This is about 20,000 feet of flooring being recycled on each floor. Once this flooring is cleaned up, the framers will be in, they'll start building the partitions, and the electrician and the plumbers will be here. I think things are going to start changing very fast, and I'm hoping it'll be well within a year's time.
Let me just say this, Chris. As a resident of Forge Village and a lifelong resident of Westford, someone who worked in these buildings at one time, what you've done here shows the potential that these buildings have if they're done right. Now, I know that you can do these things and they cannot be done right, but if they're done right, they are a showcase for the community, a great neighbor, and aesthetically beautiful as well. And as a taxpayer and as a homeowner in Forge Village, I know the value of my property has gone up. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I enjoy it.